So on page 178, please read Mason.
Inland areas.
So yesterday, on Monday, we talked about the coastal areas. Those were the areas along the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. Now we're talking about the inland areas, which are the parts in here that are further away from the ocean and the Gulf.
Inland areas. Inland form the coastal plain. The southeast has different features. Here there are hills, mountains, plateaus, plains, and a mighty river.
Who thinks they might know what the mighty river is? Mason? Correct. So what they're saying is, so here we've got the coastal plain. That's all the areas from the coast, the Atlantic coast, all the way to the Appalachian Mountains. Then we get to the Appalachian Mountains, which is where the inland areas start. And then we travel west to these more flat areas where we sometimes have some mountains, some hills, and some plateaus. And then, of course, a mighty river. Mason, go ahead, keep reading.
Hills and mountains. The Appalachian Mountains are in the middle of the southeast.
So, there's the Appalachian Mountains. You can see it's right in the middle of the southeast. We've got the eastern part and then the western part. But the Appalachian Mountains run right through the middle.
To the east of them is a hilly region called the
Use the pronunciation key.
Piedmont.
Not Piedmont. How would you say EE? You're close, but it's not Piedmont, it's... So how would you say that? You would say EE is E, so how would you say PEED? And then Mont.
Head.
Not Ped. Ped would be one E. Piedmont.
To the east of them is a hilly region called the Piedmont. A Piedmont is an area of highland or at the foot of mountains.
So, let's see. I'm going to make my definition small so that we can leave this up. Once Mason tells me the definition, so that you know what to write, we're going to look for the Piedmont on our map. So, our next word, number 3, I think. Number 3 is what word, Mason?
Piedmont.
Piedmont. Further over. Piedmont. Piedmont. And what is the Piedmont? Or what is a Piedmont?
An area of highland at the foot of mountains.
An area of high land at the foot of mountains. So we see that on this map. First we'll look up front at the big map. Here's the Appalachian Mountains. Right on the other side is the Piedmont. So that eastern Tennessee area, not quite Gatlinburg if you've been there, because that's still in the Appalachian Mountains, but just to the west, like if you've ever been to like Fall Creek Falls or something, that would be the Piedmont. Nashville is probably the end of the Piedmont. So it's still high, like they still have some hills and mountains, but not quite as tall as the mountains. It's that land that's still high, it's still high land, right at the foot of mountains. So this would be the Piedmont, through eastern Kentucky and Tennessee, and a little bit of northern Alabama. Okay, read next. Zari.
Where the Piedmont meets the coastal plains, the land drops sharply. Geographers called this area the fall line.
Hey, I've got to tell you something. The Piedmont, so both sides is a Piedmont, but the Piedmont, the area we're talking about, sorry, I was on the wrong side, is this side. So you've got the coastal plain, which is very flat. Then right at the foot of the mountains, right before the Appalachian Mountains, is the Piedmont, okay? Not here. This is a Piedmont, but not the area we're talking about right now, the Piedmont with a capital P. Because remember, the lowercase p means there's lots of Piedmonts. But the capital P means this is the particular name of this one, okay? So this is the area we're talking about. Whoops. There's the Appalachian Mountains. We're talking about this area right here. Western North Carolina, northern Georgia, western Virginia, and a little bit of East Tennessee. Keep going, Zari.
I can start over if you want me to.
No, that's okay.
A fall line is a place where rivers drop from higher to lower land, causing waterfalls and rapids to form.
So, number 4 is what word, Zari?
Fall line.
Fall line. And what is a fall line?
A place where rivers drop from high to lower land.
A place where rivers drop from high to lower land. And what do these fall lines cause, Zari?
It causes waterfalls and rapids to form.
They cause waterfalls and rapids to form. Think about it. If the land, here's your little river. Here's the land underneath it. You know, the river's kind of deep. And then all of a sudden, the land drops. Is the water just going to keep going? No. What happens to the water? Class?
It falls.
It falls. It goes over. So that's what the fall line is. If we look at this map, we see the Appalachian Mountains. Do you see the word Piedmont on this small map on your page? And then right between the coast and the Piedmont, we see that red line representing the fall line. That's where you're going to find a bunch of these, a bunch of waterfalls, because the land goes from higher to lower. Now, sometimes it happens a lot more slowly than this. It doesn't just drop like that. That's what they call rapids. That's where the land is just dropping a little bit at a time. And then there might be big rocks, like so people go whitewater rafting where this happens. Because if you're in a raft, can you go over the side of a waterfall? No. But if it happens slowly like this and just gets real rough in these couple places, your boat can just go right through it. It's a little scary, but that's why it's whitewater rafting. Okay, we got to keep going if we want to finish. Otherwise, we'll have to have one social studies lesson during testing, and I don't want to have to do that. Okay, so we see this red fall line. It starts at what city? When we see fall lines, we start in the north and we go to the south. What city does the fall line start in? Smith?
New York.
New York City. And around what city does the fall line end? Aaron?
Montgomery.
Montgomery in what state? This is why we needed to know the states and abbreviations. What state is Montgomery in? And the shapes of states. Michaela?
Alabama.
Alabama. Do you see AL? That's the abbreviation for Alabama. That's why we had to do the states and abbreviations, because the only time we see the full state name is in that map at the beginning of the chapter. After that, all the little maps inside the chapters are just going to have the abbreviations. That's why we had to take that test. Okay. Keep going. Lena, or do you want to pass for today? Okay, that's okay. Do you think you might need to go back down, or are you feeling pretty much the same?
It's a little worse like my throat's super
Okay. How about you go back down and see, and make sure that it hasn't gotten worse. Carla, keep reading, or do you just want to wait until after we're done?
hurt.
Okay. Carla, read next.
Plateaus and plains. West of the Appalachians are the Cumberland Plateau in Kentucky and Tennessee, and the Oatwood Plateau in Arkansas. From the plateaus, the land lowers to the Central Plains. The Mississippi River, which flows here, often floods.
Hey, Carla. I'm sorry. You're doing a good job reading, but there's kind of a lot of background noise, so it's kind of hard for us to tell. So I'm going to let somebody else read, okay?
Okay.
You're doing a good job. It's hard to hear you because of the background.
Okay.
Kingston, can you pick up where Carla left off?
The Mississippi River, which flows here, often floods. The flood waters deposit silt on the land, making soil very hard.
Silt, if you haven't learned, is a type of soil. It's like a wet soil with lots of nutrients, and it's almost clay-like. Keep going.
Okay, as a result, the Mississippi River Valley is an important farming region.
So, these places on the map, the Cumberland Plateau is around here, around southeastern Kentucky. Then we see the Ozark Plateau, which I don't know why they gave it to us in that order, because the Ozark Plateau is up around here. Heber Springs is in the Ozark Plateau. And in between, we have this flat, low area of land along the what? We have this flat, low area of land between the Cumberland Plateau and the Ozark Plateau along the what? It's in your book. It doesn't say between the Cumberland and the Ozark Plateau, but it's flat, low land along the, also I'm pointing to it. Zari?
Appalachian Mountains.
Not the Appalachian Mountains, that's over here, and we haven't read about that in a while. We're talking about west of the Appalachian Mountains, that's over here. We're talking about west. We also haven't really read, other than it just mentioning, we have the Cumberland Plateau. So here's the Appalachian Mountains. Here's the Cumberland Plateau. Over here we have the Ozark Plateau, and in the middle we have this flat, low land. I also said flat and low, Zari. So would a mountain range be considered flat and low? Cullen?
The Mississippi River.
The Mississippi River, which it says is a area that has very fertile soil. Remember, fertile soil means things grow easily in it. Is that true, do you think? How do you know that that's true without reading it in your book? That the area around the Mississippi River must be really fertile. How do you know that without reading it in your book? Mason?
Because the Mississippi has a lot of water.
Well, okay. Smith?
The Mississippi River floods a lot onto the soil that may not be healthy until it gets the minerals.
What do we see a lot of around here? Especially if we go a little bit south or a little bit north. Aaron?
Rain.
Do we see a lot of rain just north and south of us, but not really in the city? What do we see a lot of? Even mentioned it here. Mason? Farms. Would there be farms? We talked about this the other day, guys. Would there be farms if the soil wasn't good? No, like up in the Northeast. They don't have a lot of farms because their soil is very rocky and there's not much space. But down here, especially in the Mississippi River Valley, because it's between two higher areas of ground, the Ozark Plateau and the Cumberland Plateau, it has very fertile soil from the flooding of the Mississippi River, and also there's lots of space because it's flat and low. There's no mountains. So, of course, if you have flat, large areas with good soil, what's the best use of that land? Carla?
Farming.
Farming. Okay, I have a question. What causes waterfalls to form on many rivers in the southeast? What have we talked about that would cause waterfalls to form on many rivers in the southeast? Cullen?
Fall line.
The fall line, which is what? Where what meets what? The what meets the?
The Piedmont
Meets the?
meets the coastal plain.
Good. Where the coastal plains meet the Piedmont, that's that area right before the Appalachian Mountains. There's that fall line because it goes from being higher land to very flat land, so we get a lot of waterfalls. Okay, read next. Michaela.
Climate.
A little louder.
Climate. The southern is
Not the
famous.
southern. Go slow.
The southern
No, not the southern. There's no R or N. It's a compound word.
The southeast is famous for its mild climate.
Blah, blah, blah.
Thousands of people visit or move there each year to enjoy it.
What does a mild climate mean? Mason? It does have to do with that mixture, but not quite that it's cold and hot. You're on the right track. Aaron?
It's cool.
It's cool. Zadie?
I was going to say it's warmish.
It's warm. Victoria?
It has kind of like, at the beach it kind of like has that kind of temperature, warm climate.
Mild climate means it doesn't really get too hot or too cold. It's just kind of in the middle. Although we know that's not really true anymore because it gets real hot here, doesn't it? But it doesn't really get really, really cold like it does up north. Keep going, Michaela. Loud.
Warm, sunny, and wet. The southeast has a warm, sunny climate. The farther south you travel, the warmer.
The farther, don't skip words.
The farther south you travel, the warmer the climate becomes.
Pause. Why does it get warmer the farther south you travel in the southeast? Lena?
Because in the southeast it's warm and sunny.
Okay, but why does it get warmer as you travel south? Mason?
Because it's closer to the sun than
Not that you're closer to the sun. I mean, technically, but there's something that you're getting closer to. Zadie?
the equator.
The equator. Remember, the equator is the warmest spot on Earth because it's the closest to the sun because of that tilt. So because you're getting closer to the equator, which is the warmest part on Earth, that's why the more south you go, the warmer it gets. Keep going.
This gives much of the southeast a long growing season. A growing season is the time during which the weather is warm enough for plants to grow.
So what's number 5, Michaela?
A growing season.
Growing season. And what is a growing season?
A growing season is the time during which the weather is warm enough for plants to grow.
The time during which the weather is warm enough for plants to grow. So not only is this Mississippi River Valley good for farming because of the fertile soil and the flat land, but also because why? Why is this Mississippi River Valley in the southeast so good for farming? Other than the fertile soil from the flooding and the silt from the river and the flat land. What's the other reason it's so good for farming? Zari?
The water's not too hot or too cold.
Would we farm in the water though? Think about what we just talked about. What Michaela just read. You guys are guessing. Think about what Michaela just read. And I'm not asking about the fertile soil or the flat land. Based on what Michaela just read and the vocab word we just talked about, why else is the Mississippi River Valley so good for farming? Aaron? There's warm weather up in the Northeast, but why is it even better down here? Not only is there warm weather, but Michaela?
It's warm enough for plants to grow.
So is the Northeast sometimes. Victoria? Zari?
There's a mild climate.
It has a long growing season. Aaron, read next.
Although the southeast has plenty of sunshine, it also gets lots of rain. Every state in the region gets more than 40 inches of rain in most years. In winter, the Appalachian Mountains get plenty of snow too.
Keep going.
Hurricanes strike the southeast almost every year between June and November. A hurricane is a huge tropical storm.
What's our next word?
Hurricane.
And what does hurricane mean?
A huge tropical storm.
A huge tropical storm. So not just any old tropical storm, which happen in warm tropical areas, but a huge one. When you're done, keep going.
It has heavy rain and winds of more than 73 miles per hour. Hurricanes form above clean water. After they form, however, they may move overland, causing terrible damage.
Victoria, read next. Louder.
Several major hurricanes hit the southeast in 2004 and 2005. Besides damaging buildings and trees, their heavy rain caused flooding in the region.
Which you can see a picture of up at the top of that page. That's New Orleans right after Hurricane Katrina in 2005. How does the climate in the southeast differ from north to south? So we're only talking about the southeast. How is the climate different in the northern part of the southeast versus the southern part of the southeast? How is it different? Cullen?
The southern southeast is closer to the equator.
So what does that have to do with climate? It's geography, but what does it have to do with climate?
It's hotter than the
So the further south you travel, the warmer it gets because it's closer to the equator. Okay, turn the page. Sure.
Natural resources. The southeast has many natural resources. People in the region depend on those resources to make a living.
So up at the top, we see a land use and resources map. Remember, the colors, do they tell us the way the land is used or the resources you can find there? Do the colors tell us the way the land was used, or do they tell us the resources you can find there? Carla.
The way the land is used.
The way the land is used. They can use it for manufacturing, which we see in pink, farming, which we see in light green, grazing, which we see in yellow, forest, which we see in dark green, and places where they really can't use it at all, little used land, in white. So the pictures symbolize what? Represent what? If the colors represent how the land is used, the pictures represent, Aaron? The resources you can find there. Really quickly, look at where this little used land is, this white little used land. Based on where it is, why do you think we can't really use that for farming or forest or grazing or anything else? Michaela?
Because it's near a large body of water.
It's near a large body of water. So why would that make the land not able to be used? What might you find a lot of there? Victoria?
Water, and it will maybe flood your lawn if you go.
So it might be there might be too much water. It might flood there a lot. What do we find in places that are mostly covered with water but not all the time? Zadie?
It's really, well, you can't really do anything with it. It's
But what do we find there? Zari?
Swamps.
Swamps and marshes. Is it a good idea to build a factory for manufacturing in a swamp or a marsh, in a wetland? No, there's too much water. It might wash your place away, or like where would people park their cars, or it may flood. What about putting a farm in a marsh? Would that be a good idea? Why? What's going to happen to your farm or your forest or your land for your cattle? Lena?
It will get flooded.
It'll get flooded, and then there goes all your crops, or there goes all the food for your animals. Or there goes the trees, because there's too much water. Look at this map. Which southeast states have oil or natural gas? Which southeast states have oil or natural gas? Cullen, tell me one. Or first, what are we looking for to see if it has oil or natural gas?
a blue building.
like a blue tower looking thing. That's called an oil derrick. And tell me one state where we find oil and natural gas.
Arkansas.
Arkansas. Where else? Mason? Louisiana. We're going to come up with 9. Aaron? Kentucky. Victoria? Tennessee. Zari?
West Virginia.
West Virginia. Cullen?
Mississippi.
Mississippi. Carla?
Knoxville.
Knoxville's a city, not a state. Zadie?
Louisiana.
Somebody already said Louisiana. Here's what we said. Cullen, who said one? Tell me what you said. Cullen, what'd you say?
I said Arkansas and Mississippi.
Cullen said Arkansas and Mississippi. Mason, what did you say? Louisiana. Victoria, what did you say? Tennessee. Zari, what did you say?
West Virginia.
West Virginia. And Aaron, what did you say? Kentucky. So there's still 3 more. Michaela? Alabama. Smith? Florida. Oh, wait. Yeah, Florida. Sorry. 1 more. Kingston? Michaela?
Kentucky.
Somebody already said Kentucky. Zari?
Oops, Tennessee.
Somebody already said Tennessee. We've said Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Arkansas. Did we say Arkansas?
Yeah.
Did we say it? Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee. I missed one. So we said Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee. So there's 8. Oh, and Louisiana, and then there's 1 more. Aaron?
North Carolina.
Not North Carolina. One more time. We said Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee. I keep missing, Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, so there's only 8. We need 1 more. Did we say it already?
We said Mississippi.
Did we say Mississippi? Okay, so somebody said Mississippi. Yes, so there they are. There's 8. I was accidentally counting West Virginia as 2 because it was 2 words, but it's only 1. Where do you notice a lot of those oil or natural gas? There's 2 areas where we see a lot of oil or natural gas. By the blank and in the blank. Well, but by what in Louisiana specifically? Cullen?
By the Gulf of Mexico.
By the Gulf Coast. So you see a lot along the Gulf Coast. Who's ever been to the beach at the Gulf Coast? Especially the Alabama coast and the Mississippi coast. You can look out and you can see those lights and they never move. Those are oil rigs. That's where they get oil and natural gas. Where else do you see some oil and natural gas? In the Victoria? It doesn't say, but we know there's something there. On the Appalachian Mountains. Look at the ones that kind of follow a diagonal line up in this area where we know the Appalachian Mountains are. What do we know is below the sand in the ocean? What is below there? What type of material? Not oil. It's the same thing that's in the mountains, that mountains are made out of. Cullen?
Soil.
Not soil. Smith?
Rocks.
Rocks. So when they're way out in the ocean, they can drill down deep below the sand into the rock. And underneath the rock is where the oil and natural gas is. In the mountains, they don't have to go that deep because the mountains go really high, and so they can get down below the rock to the oil. Do you know what oil is? It's old prehistoric plants and animals. That's what it is. Can we make new prehistoric plants and animals and crush them between layers of rocks and then use it again over millions of years? No, that's why it's a non-renewable resource. Okay, read to us about the land. Cullen.
The land. A sunny climate,
Plentiful.
plentiful rainfall, and flat land makes the
Not the southern.
southeast a good place for farm. Cotton, soybeans, rice, peanuts, vegetables, and tobacco are major crops. Farmers in the hottest, wettest area grow oranges, grapefruit, and
It's a compound word.
sugar cane. Many farmers in the region raise pigs, dairy cows, and other animals.
Because we're not in, remember, if there's no indentation, so if it starts in the same place as everything else, it's not a new paragraph.
Georgia and Arkansas,
Oh, how do we say that?
Arkansas
There we go.
are the nation's largest producers of chicken.
Okay. Zadie, keep reading.
Trees also grow well in the region. Pine forests cover the Piedmont and the Appalachian. In Arkansas, pine, elm, and maple trees grow on the Ozark Plateau. Louisiana has large forests and cypress and oak.
Not in, but
Cypress and oak.
it's Cypress. But read that sentence again. Louisiana, it's Cypress.
Louisiana has large forests of cypress and oak.
You said in Cypress and oak, but it's of. That means it's made of it. Keep going.
The region has mineral and fuel resources too. Florida has minerals that are used to make fertilizers. Fertilizers are materials that are added to soil to make it more fertile.
Look at the word fertilizers. What's the base word that you see in fertilizer? Lena?
Fertile.
Fertile. Fertile means good for growing. So if we add the suffix IZER, so in number 7 we see most of the base word fertile, but then we add the suffix IZER. The suffix IZER makes an adjective into a noun, meaning a thing that does that. So fertile means good for growing. IZER turns that adjective fertile into a noun, meaning something that makes soil or something fertile, good for growing. So what's a fertilizer?
Fertilizers are materials that are
Not materials. Oh, yes, it is material. Sorry, I thought it said minerals.
are materials that are added to soil to make it more fertile.
So, fertilizers are materials added to soil to make it more fertile. So remember, the base word fertile is an adjective meaning good for growing. The suffix IZER turns that adjective fertile into a noun, which is a thing that makes fertile soil, or that makes soil good for growing. Yes, Victoria, quickly.
I actually learned over the weekend that we only know 5% of our ocean.
Yep, there's a lot of the ocean that hasn't been explored yet. Okay, just like space. Keep going.